Mirror imaging is important, so much so because God created us in His image. What does this mean? And did the Son of God defeat death? And at what length does that mean? Could having a giant jigsaw puzzle of a labyrinth be at the forefront of everyone just making shift to get by, business as usual? I'm here to find out what that would mean in its most extreme measures in the final fate of a habitable zone that wasn't one. There's, a handful of these gestures I mentioned earlier. People always like talking, but then once I enter the room, it's dead silence. It's kind of funny, but then in an occurrence, it's like, I want to capitalize off these things. And the more that these renowned scientists, we finish what they last left off before they died, with quantizing stuff or atomic theory where atoms are positive inside their core. And then also it's interesting how atoms are all basically the same weight despite them having mass amounts of different particle weights about them. That's just a problem to do with the rotation, because the weight, when it comes to, throw a bucket around in a circle, the water stays into the bucket if you're spinning it hard enough. That's all that issue would be. The more shining light on these problems, it's the more you get close to God without the wish-washiness of the treat people how you want to be treated. But when it comes to intricacies and intimacy, it's where evil's greedy, so that's a clear divide, and it's cutting closer to God when you're unraveling these scientists who got left behind for technocrats. So that's all I'm trying to do. So that's all. A little briefing on the heavy vlog that I just performed. The cosmic area, outer space. The reference of a kaleidoscope being the Mandela effect over the scales of outer space is referencing to De Sitter space and Hilbert space. These two things are what in modern day is a conceptualization to give a value to the depths of outer space, because it's incredibly open. Some just write it off as a vacuum. With how a locust cloud could keep going the more that it ate all the stuff up in Egypt, all the crops, and it's almost at this point it's called weird surface tension, where it's a constant of the close. When you talk about a capsule, we're all vessels. We carry around our innards. So us all together, there's a thing that is taught in College of Psychology when it is a transcendence feeling. When there's a whole bunch of people together, you feel like inside a stadium that you're part of a bigger presence, and it's true. That's called transcendence. But when they're all working in lieu with each other, you can imagine that the locusts inside of their giant cloud eating up all the crops and side of an entire kingdom in Egypt, they would keep going with weird surface tension, where if the weaklings in the bunch got hungry, it would be in unison with it's called a hive mind at that point, were inside the locust cloud, they would get extra strength from, you know, however they're functioning with each other would be to keep going. And this is what you see in human nature with when mothers like pick up a car if they have their baby stuck under it, and that's when that would be kicked into play. Bobby pin in my eye, and given that thought, where if I were to land in a jump that was that extravagant, my bones would kind of be displaced a bit. And when I'm talking about bones displacement, I've got a broken collarbone, so whenever I run, if I don't stretch, it'll like jolt around. My collarbone will jolt around when I run if I don't stretch. And that's really discomforting because I know it's bone on bone, as opposed to when you've got flesh about your joints and your bone is like a shock on your joints, so it doesn't hit the bone on bone, so it won't wear you down. I heard that there's parasites in most people, and then didn't want to relate this, but the moon pushing on the ocean, it has a direct effect. The moon, I was told, that pushes on parasites in your body and acts them up. And your nutrition, there's specific parasites that eat all your nutrition, and so when you eat nutritious food, it just takes it from you. If we pull all this stuff together, we've got a picture of, well, me not wanting to eat plastic because it's, whenever you break the seal on something, you're peppering your drink or your food with plastic particles. That, and then parasites, of course, wouldn't want them being in. Yeah. So back to the Mandelbrot set. This here have to do with fractals and the symmetry of crystalline structures. The inference of locust to smart dust, if there's ever such a thing, it's got to have to do with the density we're mentioning, but more so the compression. And when that's called monolithic, would be a compactness plate superconductivity. And when these words are thrown around, you actually have a scalability of what's possible with computers and RAM properties. You know what RAM speed is? And in Japan, they've got vehicles that have horsepower, but they perform with like gas 10 times better than ours. So that's a scalability that's important to understand with how what a giant locust cloud could keep going. Is that what determines that excitation inside of a cavity? Not the composition of the walls, and not the, I forget the other thing. And so, that being a deterministic factor in cosmology, when you've got the green microwave background around everything, green, and then the event horizons, of course, you can picture it as like you can never go above the speed of light because your mass increases. So imagine like a giant event horizon everywhere, because we can only go and traveling under the speed of light. So those are tools that you can understand what Max Planck's cavity had entail on larger scales.